killers. Welcome to Dallas. Sharks and gorillas. The girls, they going harder than. Welcome to Dallas.
Howdy. Welcome back to the Poofy Man podcast in short format form, where we deliver all things worth hearing in a thoughtful way. So, P-Man was wrong. Players fuck up sometimes, you know. Karmelo Anthony not only found guilty of capital murder, but also facing, sentenced to 35 years. So this is the last one I'm doing on this, just because this is not exactly it's not really what I want to be talking about every day, but it's just important. So 35 years, man, that's a long time. Now, so here's the thing. I've heard a little rumble online about this, but it so far hasn't really seemed to influence many people, or at least not many people that I'm coming across. So there's something wrong here from the beginning, and it has very little to do with external influences or anything like that. There's clearly a piece of evidence that we're missing, because if you've watched the first two, kind of outlined what we could expect to see, which is something like manslaughter, just based off of the evidence that we have at our disposal publicly. So obviously something is being kept under lock and key, and that turned the trial the other way, right? That convinced anybody sitting there, whatever that evidence was, I presume it to be the video, that literally just turned everybody against the defense at this point. But hear me out. So there was a few things from the very beginning that should have led the strategy for the defense team, representing Karmelo, to take this trial in a different direction. First off, there's a lot to be said about the jury selection process. Now, for me, I hope this probably rubbed people the wrong way, but it's not really surprising that there are no members of the black community represented in the jury, this jury. So I'm gonna get this took place in Collin County, which is near Frisco, which is where essentially the incident happened, and that's a predominantly white part of town. It's just far north of Dallas, and so the likelihood, the ratio of potential jurors was not balanced from the beginning. You probably had something like 5 or 6 to 1 regardless. So that being as it is, you'd expect the defense team for Karmelo to notice that. If they couldn't get the trial arranged to be taken to take place somewhere else, they should have sat down knowing what we don't know as far as the video is concerned, but they did know in the beginning, because, it's material evidence that's going to be provided to both sides. So they knew many, many months ago what the jurors, if they took it to a jury trial, would be seeing. And the fact that they felt that taking it this far to a 12-man jury, to a full-on trial, under the plea that he was completely guilty of completely not guilty of anything, innocent of all charges, is very suspect. I don't think that anyone in their heart, regardless what they're saying and what they're writing and posting online, there's nobody out here that I think truly believes that he's completely innocent, right? Somebody died in this incident, so it takes it to a whole nother level, and charges will be brought. He even admitted on his own volition that he did it, right? So I'm not sure what the thought process was to taking him into a potentially lengthy trial with with an automated bot serving as the juror pool selector out of a small, mostly white county in North Dallas. Not only that, but given whatever evidence was strong enough against Karmelo Anthony to turn jurors, regardless of their race, to sentencing him on their own merit, by their own pen, to 35 years in prison, we can assume whatever that piece of evidence is relatively strong. Again, both sides of this trial, defense and prosecution, had access to these and knew what the odds were of getting a fair trial, first, and second, seeing their client, in the defense's case, come out on top. And it was very low. It was very low. They should have sat down with the prosecutors and worked out a plea deal to try to plead down to manslaughter, because this still is a manslaughter case, in my opinion, given the fact that I don't have I cannot see all of the material evidence that was brought before the jury box and the people that were there, that contributed to the trial or participated in it. So it leads me to ask the question, like, what was the motive here? What were the motives, or what is the motive of the people defending Karmelo Anthony? Because it certainly seems that it would be to drag out a potentially high-profile trial for as long as possible, to give them, or them independently, the most face time possible, to optimize their time in the light, because they wanted to be the next. This was the jury of their career, or the trial of their career. It was their Johnny Cochran moment or something, which of course is a disgusting miscarriage of justice in some ways. And this doesn't fall on anyone's shoulders but theirs. I think they should have known realistically that this was not going to end up, going very well, given that obfuscated piece of evidence. They should have worked something out to plead down these charges, because now we have a kid with no priors, with a good head on his shoulders for the most part, it would seem, going away for 35 years, period, point blank. Doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't help him, because for people who don't know much have never even stepped foot into a jail, it's a horrible place to be. I mean, I can't even imagine. It's almost so ridiculous me even talking about it, but to think about what it was doing 30 some, being sentenced in 90 days and having to do 30, like, I can't imagine what 35. That's just insane. And you have people, of course, that are obviously being cast with the authority to make that judgment, who have never done time before either, which is strange. But it does lead me to a bigger question: is like, do we need jury trials anymore? Because it would seem to be at odds. It's a conflict of interest with just the very nature of what we're trying to achieve with the judicial system in general. I mean, trying to reach a point of 100% objectivity is kind of the goal when we're trying a case like this. Why would we do it in Collin County? Everybody knows the case by word of mouth if they don't have the internet. And since everyone does have the internet, everyone knows everything about this trial before it starts. It's completely corrupted from the beginning. What would be the negative net impact of just moving it to Lubbock or Houston or Austin or anywhere else? If we want a pool of jurors that have as little knowledge about the case as possible, and to make them as objective as possible, I'm not sure what holding any high profile case in the city of origin does for anyone. So, anyways, sorry about that. So, anyways, it's a sad deal all around. But again, this is just a wrap up. Drop your comments. Let me know what you think. As always, I'm open ears. So until then, this is Poofy Man signing off.
Dallas, the home of the killers. Welcome to Dallas. Sharks and gorillas, the girls, they going harder than. Welcome to Dallas. We lost some legends. Welcome to